Scientists at MIT put people in an EEG machine and watched their brains while they used ChatGPT. Brain connectivity dropped to its lowest recorded level in the study, and 83% of the participants could not recall what they had just written minutes earlier. Their brains had essentially checked out.
This is not a think piece. This is not speculation. The peer-reviewed data is now arriving, and what it's showing about what AI does to your brain is something every daily user needs to understand.
Here's what's strange. The people most affected by this aren't who you'd expect. They're not teenagers. They're not technophobes struggling to keep up. According to a 2026 study published in JAMA Network Open, one of the most rigorous medical journals in the world, the highest risk group is educated, ambitious, higher-income adults between 25 and 64. People who use AI every day to be more productive. People who sound a lot like you and me.
By the end of this video, you'll understand three things. First, what AI is physically doing to your prefrontal cortex and memory systems. Second, why the productivity gains you're feeling right now may be masking a slow cognitive decline that researchers are calling cognitive debt. And third, a simple protocol you can start today to use AI without losing your edge.
And I should tell you, the third part is not stop using AI. That's not realistic, and it's not what the science suggests. The answer is more interesting than that.
Let's start with the research that put this on the map. In January 2026, Dr. Roy Perlis, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist at Harvard Medical School, published a study in JAMA Network Open that surveyed 20,847 adults across all 50 U.S. states. The question was simple: is there a measurable relationship between AI chatbot use and mental health?
The answer was not simple at all.
Daily AI users were approximately 30% more likely to have at least moderate levels of depression. They also showed higher anxiety scores and greater irritability. But here's the finding that made researchers pause. For adults aged 45 to 64, the depression risk jumped to 54%. For 25 to 44-year-olds, the core demographic of ambitious professionals who adopted AI early, it was 32%.
Now, I need to be precise here. This is a cross-sectional study. It shows a strong association, not proven causation. We don't know for certain whether AI use is causing the depression or whether people who are already struggling are turning to AI more. That's an honest caveat, and it matters.
But what makes this study hard to dismiss is the pattern. 87.1% of daily users weren't just using AI for work. They were using it for personal reasons: emotional support, life advice, decision-making, recommendations. They were outsourcing not just tasks, but thinking. And the more personal the use, the stronger the correlation with depressive symptoms.
That's not a tool anymore. That's a cognitive relationship. And that's where the next study picks up something even more unsettling, because the MIT team actually watched it happen inside the brain.
In June 2025, researcher Natalia Kozmina at the MIT Media Lab published a study with a title that reads like a warning label: Your Brain on ChatGPT, Accumulation of Cognitive Debt When Using an AI Assistant.
Here's what they did. They took 54 participants, split them into 3 groups, and gave each group the same essay writing task. The first group wrote entirely on their own, no assistance. The second group could use a search engine. The third group used ChatGPT. While they wrote, every participant wore an EEG headset recording their brain activity in real time.
The results were striking. The ChatGPT group showed significantly lower brain connectivity than both other groups. Their alpha and beta network activity, the neural signatures of focused thinking and active processing, was suppressed. The MIT team's exact words: the LLM group performed worse than their counterparts in the brain-only group at all levels: neural, linguistic, scoring.
Let me say that again. Worse at every level. The neural activity was weaker. The writing quality was lower. And the recall? 83% of the AI-assisted writers could not remember passages they had written just minutes earlier.
Think about that for a second. They held the words in their hands. They read them on screen. They submitted them as their own work. And minutes later, gone. The brain never encoded the information because the brain was never fully engaged.
Now, I want to flag something important here. This study was published as a preprint, which means it hasn't completed peer review yet. The methodology is solid,
The MIT Media Lab is a credible institution, and the findings are directionally consistent with everything else we're seeing. But scientific honesty matters on this channel, so I want you to know, this is preliminary data. The direction is clear. The final verdict is still coming.
But here's where it gets interesting, because the MIT team didn't just measure the brain during AI use. They measured what happened when AI was taken away.
When participants who had been using ChatGPT were forced to write independently in a later phase, their brain connectivity started to recover. The prefrontal cortex re-engaged. The neural networks came back online. This suggests the effect is not permanent, at least not from short-term use.
But the team also found something that should make every daily user uncomfortable. Brain connectivity, and I'm quoting directly, systematically scaled down with the amount of external support. The more AI assistance, the less the brain worked. The relationship was linear. More AI, less brain.
And that linear relationship is the mechanism behind what they called cognitive debt.
Cognitive debt. This is the concept that ties everything together. And once you understand it, you'll never think about your AI usage the same way.
Think of it like financial debt. Every time you outsource a cognitive task to AI, writing an email, solving a problem, making a decision, generating an idea, you get an immediate productivity gain. The task gets done, you feel efficient, you move faster.
But your brain just missed a rep. Your prefrontal cortex didn't have to organize ideas. Your working memory didn't have to hold multiple concepts in mind. Your critical thinking circuits didn't have to evaluate evidence. The cognitive muscles that make you a sharp, independent thinker, they didn't fire.
And just like a muscle that doesn't get used, they start to atrophy.
This isn't just the MIT team's framing. A 2025 article from Polytechnic Insights warned that, from a neurological standpoint, widespread use of AI carries the risk of overall cognitive atrophy and loss of brain plasticity. They specifically noted that passive, uncritical reliance on AI may weaken activity-dependent brain plasticity.
Activity-dependent brain plasticity. That's the mechanism. Your brain rewires based on what you actually do. If you stop doing the hard cognitive work, the writing, the reasoning, the problem-solving, your brain literally restructures to reflect that reduced demand.
Now, most people hear this and think, okay, but I'm using AI as a tool. I'm still thinking. And for some users, that's genuinely true. But here's the data that challenges that assumption.
Michael Gerlich published a study in the MDPI Society's journal in January 2025 that surveyed 666 participants across 3 age groups. He found a significant negative correlation between AI tool usage frequency and critical thinking scores. The correlation coefficient was -0.68. That's a strong inverse relationship. And cognitive offloading, the tendency to let AI do the mental heavy lifting, correlated with AI usage at +0.72.
In plain language, the more you use AI, the more you offload your thinking. The more you offload your thinking, the worse your critical thinking becomes. And the effect was strongest in the youngest users, ages 17 to 25, who showed both the highest dependency and the lowest critical thinking scores.
This is the debt compounding. It's invisible. It feels like productivity, but the balance is growing.
Now, I want to be careful with this next section, because there's a spectrum here, and what I'm about to describe is the far end of it. Most daily AI users are not going to experience this, but the fact that it exists tells us something important about where the line is.
In 2025, UCSF psychiatrist Dr. Keith Sakata reported treating 12 patients who developed psychosis-like symptoms, delusions, disorganized thinking, hallucinations, connected to extended chatbot use. These weren't patients with long psychiatric histories. They were people who had gradually spent more and more hours each day in conversation with AI, often replacing human connection almost entirely.
Dr. Sakata told PBS it really is a kind of dose effect. The pattern he observed wasn't about AI triggering psychosis out of nowhere. It was about what happened when extended use combined with social isolation and sleep deprivation, a feedback loop where AI became the primary relationship and reality started to blur.
Now, Dr. Adrian Prada, a psychiatrist featured in the American Psychiatric Association's coverage of this topic, was careful to note that artificial intelligence does not cause psychosis. But he added that the conversational, responsive, and seemingly empathic design of chatbots can intensify psychotic symptoms in vulnerable people.
I'm sharing this not to scare you. Most of us are not spending 6 hours a day talking to a chatbot.
But the dose effect matters, because the same mechanism driving those extreme cases, the gradual replacement of human cognitive effort and social connection with AI, exists on a spectrum. And the JAMA study shows that even moderate daily use sits further along that spectrum than most of us realize.
And this brings us to the part that makes cognitive debt so hard to notice, because AI is specifically designed to feel rewarding.
A 2025 paper presented at the ACM-CHE conference identified 4 specific design patterns in AI chatbots that activate your brain's reward system in ways similar to gambling. Non-deterministic responses. You never know exactly how good the next answer will be, so you keep asking. Immediate visual presentation. The response appears in real time, character by character, holding your attention. Notifications pulling you back. And empathetic, agreeable responses that make you feel heard and validated.
This is the same reward uncertainty mechanism that drives slot machines. You pull the lever, you don't know what you'll get. Sometimes the response is brilliant, sometimes it's mediocre. That variability is exactly what keeps your dopamine system engaged.
So here's the trap. AI makes you feel productive while your brain does less work. It rewards you with dopamine while your cognitive muscles weaken. The debt accumulates silently because every payment feels like a deposit.
So where does this leave us? I want to be clear about something. The answer is not stop using AI. That's not realistic, and frankly, it's not what the science suggests. AI is a powerful tool. The MIT data showed that when participants alternated between AI-assisted and independent work, their brains re-engaged. The damage isn't permanent, at least not from the usage patterns studied so far.
The answer is to use AI without accumulating cognitive debt, and that requires a deliberate practice.
Here are 3 things you can start today.
Before you ask AI to draft, summarize, or analyze anything, write your own version first, even if it's rough, even if it takes 5 minutes. Force your prefrontal cortex to organize the ideas, evaluate the evidence, and form a position before you see what AI produces.
This is the direct counter to cognitive offloading. The MIT study showed that brain connectivity was highest in the brain-only condition. You don't have to stay there, but you need to start there. Think of it as the warm-up before you bring in the tool.
Once a day, do 30 minutes of unassisted cognitive work. No AI, no search engine, just you and the problem. This is the equivalent of going to the gym for your prefrontal cortex.
Write by hand. Solve a problem on a whiteboard. Read a dense article and summarize it from memory. The specific activity matters less than the constraint. Your brain has to do the full rep, from retrieval to reasoning to output, without external assistance.
The Polytechnic Insights research specifically flagged that brain plasticity is activity-dependent. The activity has to happen. There is no shortcut. This one is easy to overlook. The JAMA study found that 87% of daily AI users were turning to chatbots for personal guidance, advice, emotional support, life decisions. And the UCSF clinical observations showed that the patients most at risk were those who had gradually replaced human connection with AI interaction.
When you have a hard problem, a career decision, a creative block, a personal struggle, take it to a person before you take it to a prompt. Not because people give better answers. Sometimes they don't. But because human conversation activates your social cognition, your empathy circuits, your ability to handle disagreement and ambiguity. Those are the exact cognitive functions that AI interaction lets you skip. The goal is not to reject AI. The goal is to protect the parts of your brain that AI is quietly replacing. Keep them active, keep them firing, keep them strong enough that when you do use AI, you're directing it, not depending on it.
So here's what I want you to do right now, today. Pick one thing: the writing before prompting habit, the 30-minute thinking block, or taking a hard problem to a human instead of a chatbot, and try it. Just once. Notice what your brain does. Notice if it feels harder than it should. That feeling? That's the debt talk.
In the comments, I want to know, have you noticed your thinking changing since you started using AI daily? Be honest. I think the answers in this comment section are going to be more revealing than any study.
If this video decoded something you needed to hear, subscribe.